What if I told you that you could build a full web or mobile app without spending years learning to code? And what if AI could do most of the heavy lifting for you? This is the Vibe Coders Toolkit, the only guide you need to start coding like a Vibe Coders and launch your online business using AI. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what tool to use to build and launch your own app, whether it's a website, a mobile app, or an AI-powered SaaS. And if you're worried about expensive software, don't worry. I'll also show you how to find open source alternative so you can get started for free. Let's dive in. So I'm going to show you every single tool you need from this entire list, from LLM all the way to fine-tuning, meta tag, and I have a bonus at the end where I'll show you exactly how you can find free alternative of your favorite tool or expensive tool that you don't want to use, and instead show you something free that you can use. If you want to build like a Vibe Coders, the number one things you need to do is getting familiar with LLM. So you can use LLMs such as Grok, which come with your X account or Twitter, and you can use the thinking or deep thinking feature that allow it to really think about and reason about the solution that you need to do for you, especially if you're writing code. This is where you want to use reasoning. You can also use DeepSeek, and you could use the R1 model for it. And if you get started by, for example, sharing the idea that you want to do, maybe write the objective, then DeepSeek can be really good at actually generating a solution for you. So like an idea of what you want to build. So ask it to make a plan for what you want to build. And maybe you can even start generating some of the code just by using the LLM. Some Vibe coders only use LLM in order to Vibe code, and others use AI IDE, which I'll introduce a little bit later. And you can also use ChatGPT, obviously, one of the most popular LLM out there. And you can use it to, again, generate either the PRD of your idea, which is the project requirement document, or you can use it to generate the plan and structure, because you'll then use that code and add that code in what we call code generator AI, where you can literally generate an entire app by just typing a prompt. And usually what Vibe coders are doing is using an LLM to refine and research the idea until they come to a conclusion where they can actually generate the prompt inside of a generative AI. Another tool you can use is Cloud. Cloud has by far one of the best model for coding, so I highly recommend to try either Claude 3.5 or Claude 3.7. And this industry is moving extremely fast, so by the time you guys watch this video, we might even be at Cloud 7 or 10, I don't know. So make sure to try different models that are really good for coding. So my favorite Go tool for generating UI is V0. This is an incredibly useful tool for generating front end for your application. V0 specifically specializes in generating the front end UI. And because of that, a lot of Vibe coders don't actually design the application in Figma anymore. They just go straight to prototype because it's able to prototype really, really quickly and generate really nice application from the get-go. So almost every single app that I have generated using AI were generated using V0, at least all of the front end. But in order to use these tools right, you also need to be familiar with some of the framework, and I'm going to share that in a little bit. But first, let me show you some other tools that you can use like V0 that will allow you to generate your application. So you can use Bolt. Bolt actually allow you to generate code for various different framework, and also it has an integration with databases like Supabase and allow you to generate a full stack web and mobile application. So not just the front end, but the front end and the back end, all from a single prompt. And Lovable is also one of the best tools out there for generating a full stack application. Lovable is literally like your full stack engineer. So it built your front end, built your back end, and generate like pretty incredible result. So I highly recommend to check them out. Now, if you want to generate mobile application, you could use Bolt, which also generate mobile application, or you can use a tool that is more specialized in doing so. And one of the tools I like to recommend is called A0.dev. So this is a tool backed by Y Combinator, and this tool allows you to generate mobile application for iOS or Android just from a single prompt. You could also use Replit. Replit lately has been releasing new features for building application, even from your phone. There's a lot of people on social media that have been sharing videos of them literally building application right from their phone using Replit. And I think Replit is a really good tool also to use. So similarly to tools like Bolt or V0 and so on, it allows you to just use a single prompt and generate your application. It will build a plan for you that you will have to approve, then refine through feedback, and then you can launch in a minute and deploy right from Replit. Now, to build mobile application, you need to be familiar with what kind of framework you need to use. And one of the really popular framework out there is called React Native. So React Native is an application that allows you to build almost native application for mobile devices, for like Android, for iOS. A lot of companies use that when they want to build an application that can have a web view and also can live inside of your phone using native component of your phone, such as iOS or Android and so on. React Native is not the only framework that you can use. Actually, just recently, TikTok just released their own framework called Links, which is a direct competition to React Native. And this is the tool that they use to actually build TikTok and build some of the different apps that TikTok has launched in collaboration with some of their partners. So this is a brand new tool. And my guess is that they probably are solving some new problems that were happening in React Native. So whenever there's a new framework that is introducing a new paradigm or introducing new feature, they try to tackle problems that weren't addressed before in a different way or make it better in general. So I'm always curious to check and dive in. So I think if you're curious to see what TikTok built here, I recommend to check out Links. This is another framework that you could use. If you're building for the web and you're wondering for what kind of languages or framework should I use to build my application, one of the frameworks that's really popular right now is called Next.js. So JavaScript and TypeScript have been really popular for building application because you're building actually really, really fast. And then some people even has gone as far as saying that TypeScript is the language of AI because so many AI companies are using either Next.js or TypeScript to build the application. When you're generating your application, what you want to do is add in the prompt what kind of framework you're using, and you might want to specify to build it with Next.js. So one of the benefits of Next.js is that it's using JavaScript, but it's allowing you to have not only the front end, but also the back end of the application just with the same language. So instead to have a front end in one hand that is using one language and a back end that is using a different language like Ruby or Python, you are only using JavaScript in order to do the two things. It's a React framework, so it's using React, which is a very popular framework made by Facebook. If you're familiar with React, you'll be right at home. It's really easy to understand and then to use. So I highly recommend you guys to check this out. This is the framework that I personally use for all of my projects. And now I'm going to show you what UI framework I actually use when I'm building an application, when I'm vibe coding. So you could use Tailwind CSS. That's a CSS framework that already has a lot of the component pre-built. A lot of really big companies are using Tailwind CSS now, and it's very popular among Silicon Valley companies and among startups in general. So whenever I'm building application, I'm always mentioning Next.js, Tailwind CSS, and Shad.cn UI, which is another framework that I love to use because it has so many beautifully looking component that you can use. So if you want to have an app that looks great from the get-go, these are the kind of framework that you can use when you're generating your prompt. All you have to do is tell the AI to generate the application using Next.js, Tailwind CSS, and Shad.cn. And that's just the way I go about it. As you can see, there's so many beautiful looking components like mail, a dashboard, there's graph, task. So it has everything you need in order to get started with a really good looking application without having to really think about how to do those different components yourself. So you can just reuse it. You use the authentication component for your authentication page just by telling the AI to use the authentication component from Shad.cn UI. For example, you can use this sidebar right here, which is one of my favorite components actually for building sidebar and more. And now, when you're making your homepage, you might need something that allows you to have beautiful looking marketing component because the way you design a landing page is a little bit different than how you might design your application. And for this problem, I actually have the right solution for you. And this is this framework right here, which is a Shad.cn UI marketing framework that shows you marketing component for your landing page. And it has components such as a hero, and different additional component that you can use, like displaying different logos on your homepage. If you want to show different feature of your application, and all of that comes with this framework. So it's already done for you. So as you may have noticed, vibe coders love done for you solution because it makes it easier to build quickly and iterate really quickly when you're building ideas. This is why these tools are really great. So if you want to use this one, you have to go to nsui.irung.me. This is open source, so all of those tools are available for free. Anyone can use them. Now, if you want an even easier way to add a component to your site, you can check out 21 First Dev. So you can browse a library of different components that have different styles. So if I want to add alerts to my website, all I have to do is browse all the alerts that they have to offer. And when I'm settled and I find something that looks great for me and I want to use it on my website, all I have to do is click on it and head over the copy prompt and copy that right inside V0, and I will have the exact same component in my application. And they even provide additional option where you can actually generate that for different applications such as Replete, Magic Pattern, V0 vice versa, Lovable, Bold, and Sidebrew. And Magic Pattern is another great tool that a lot of people are not actually familiar with. And this is like Figma with AI. So this is Magic Pattern. This is a tool that you can use if you want to use AI in order to build your application or build your component, and you actually sync with Figma. There are so many great tools out there, and since AI adds so much value to different applications, I'm always looking for AI tools that can make my entire workflow a lot easier, and this is how I came across Magic Pattern. So this is another tool. This is right at your disposition if you want to vibe code. I haven't seen a lot of people using it because a lot of vibe coders tend to generate the prototype right away. But if you want to refine things and add different design patterns and design details to your application, I think this is a great tool that you can use for that. ShadCN UI is built on top of Radix, and Radix is another UI component that you can use in your application if you want to add, different component, different button, and different style. So I recommend to check this out. Check out the different things that they have to offer. If you don't want to use ShadCN necessarily, you can just go straight to Radix and then use that in your app. Now we need to talk about terminals. When you are building application, a terminal is a critical software that you need in order to build application. You will be interacting with your terminal a lot. So my go-to terminal is called Warp. This is an AI terminal, and this is by far the best terminal that I've found. It is really, really easy to use. And if you are curious about how to use it, why it's such a big deal, you can just check out the video that I made about Warp, where I cover exactly why Warp is a great terminal and how it compares to other terminals. So this is also a useful video to watch if you're curious about other terminals out there that you could use. But I guarantee you, by the time you finish watching this video, you will settle for Warp. This is a really useful terminal that makes it super easy for vibe coders to use the terminal, because you might not be familiar with different terms, different comments, different function, but this is where it comes in handy because it can actually just help you figure out how to use the terminal. So if you've never coded before, never used a terminal, you can just write in natural language what you're trying to do, and Warp will help you do that. And if you don't understand how to use different tools, you can just write in natural language, how do I use this tool? And it'll give you an explanation of how you can use this tool and even guide you along the way. So this is why I think this is the best terminal for vibe coders by far. So once you have your terminal, the next thing you want to have is an AI code editor. And the go-to AI code editor for a lot of vibe coders is Cursor. Cursor is an amazing AI editor built on top of VS Code. VS Code is another tool that developers use to write code. So if you use Cursor, what you'll get is an agent that helps you code along the way when you're building your application. So you could chat with the agent and ask it questions about your code, or you can use the agent to generate code for different features inside of your application. And those agents are getting better and better and better. And this is why it's making such a huge difference and making almost every single person using it a 10x developer. So this is a great tool to use as a vibe coder. And the next one I want to recommend is their biggest competition, which is Windsurf. Windsurf is also another great AI idea that I use. I personally use them back to back because I always run out of credits. And so I just go back and back within a month because I ran out of credit in Cursor, then I jump on Windsurf, and when I run my credit on both applications, then I start buying extra credit because those tools really improve my workflow, so I'm always using them all the time throughout the day. So I'm a power user of those tools, and I think if you want to produce things quickly, build application really fast, use one of those editors, either Cursor or Windsurf. I think both have their own advantages, and they both great tools that I think almost every single vibe coders will swear by. Now, if you don't want to spend money on an editor, you can use Trey. Trey is an AI IDE built by TikTok. Yes, TikTok have been building a lot of product out there, and the great thing about Trey is that it's actually free. And I believe that just like Cursor or Windsurf, it helped you get the job done. So now a lot of people, when they're generating code, don't necessarily want to type. So what they do instead is they just talk to the computer and they tell the computer what to do. So the go-to tool right now for vibe coders is this tool called Super Whisper. And all you do is just talking to your computer as you want it to generate different tasks. And then it's really good at following your instruction and writing the code for you. So this is the go-to tool for vibe coders to write the code when they are coding. Now, if you're using a tool like Cursor or Windsurf, you'll realize that you need to get good at managing what they call rules. So guardrails for AI to understand what it can and cannot do, or what steps to follow in order to do things the right way. And the Cursor directory is a really cool resource if you want to find out some rules by other people using Cursor. And here you'll find different rules that you can add to your code for different frameworks. So even if you're not familiar with those frameworks, you can find rules written by other Cursor users that will make it easy for you to add rules to your application. And now Cursor directly not only have rules, but they've also added recently MCP's server. So now you can actually use it to find different MCP server to add to your application. If you're curious about MCP servers and don't know how to use it, I recommend you guys to check out my video on MCP server right here, where I break down exactly how MCP server works and how you can use it for your own needs on Cursor or Windsurf. So if you don't know how to use MCP, this is the video for you guys to check out in order to find out exactly how to use that. And just how there is a Windsurf directory, there is also a Windsurf directory that you can use for the exact same need. So if you're looking to find rules and find MCP, you can head over to windsurf.run, and here you have access to similar rules that you can add to Windsurf, or even different MCP server that you can add to Windsurf as well. Now, Windsurf also added some directory to their website where you can find some rules that they recommend for the front end, for data science and ML, and for beginner. So since this is coming from Windsurf themselves, I highly recommend you guys to check out those rules, because this is written by the people that build the application that you use for vibe coding. Now, when you build your application, you might want to host it somewhere. So the place to go for that is GitHub. GitHub is an app that almost every single developer uses to host their application. It's a repository, so once you generate the code and you want to have versioning and then have a place where you can save all of your code and all the different versions, it is on GitHub that you typically have to host that. So if you're a vibe coder, you're building an application and you want to make sure to track it and save it online, you just have to upload it to GitHub, and your application will be in a safe place and in a great community of a ton of developers. Let's say you've built your application and then it looks great. You've already added it to GitHub and it's ready to get live and deploy. So the tool that most vibe coders use to deploy are Vercel and Netlify. Both tools are really great. Vercel is a really big name in the space. Super easy to use, makes your life a lot easier for a lot of things. And Netlify is my personal go-to tool to use. I've deployed almost every single application that I built with AI with Netlify. Super easy to deploy, super easy to use. So that will be my recommendation for deployment. Once you have the application, you might want to add different features, right? For example, if you wanted to add authentication, and you don't know how to do that, you don't want to build things from scratch. And the good thing about open source today is that there are a lot of solutions that are already done for you. And there are a lot of what we call SDK. So SDK make it super easy for you to implement different features and different components to your application. And there's BetterOff, which is an authentication framework that makes it super easy for you to add authentication to your application. And if you dive deep inside of it, there is option for a lot of different services. You can add email to your application. You can add Apple login with Microsoft, login with Google, login with Facebook, GitHub. They also allow you to have connection to your database. So you can use one of the options over here. Or if you are a user of another tool and you want to use backend as a service, what you can use is Supabase. So Supabase allow you to technically have your backend online, so you don't have to deal with a backend in your application. So it takes care of a lot of things like authentication, giving you edge functions, and giving you storage, vector database, and more, and so on and so on. So this is also another great tool. My personal favorite when I'm building an application and I don't want to have a complex backend, I just have Superbase handle a lot of those different parts. And Superbase authentication framework is also pretty cool. So super easy to integrate, and they also cover a lot of those options that we mentioned earlier, like GitHub, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, email, what we call magic link. So when someone enters the email and then you send them a link to authenticate. So you can do that. So you can do all of that with Superbase. Alternatively, if you want another way to either store, like data or do caching, you can use Upstash. Upstash is actually pretty cheap to use, and it allows you to have a Redis database, vector database, QStash, and workflow. I personally use it for vector and for Redis. So if I want my application to have caching mechanism, then I'm hosting my Redis database on Upstash. When you have an application, you often have to send email to customers. It can be operational email or transactional email that are sent automatically. So my go-to for operational emails where I can email the customer and communicate with them is ZooMail. ZooMail is really cheap. You can even search online. There's some ways to get it for free if you dive a little bit deep into it. I know that in some region they've removed this plan, but you know what? VPN, baby. You can just use a VPN and make sure to get access to their special plan that give you access to their tool for free. But I personally pay for it now because there were different domains that I needed to add, and I had so many different domains. And it's a really cool tool to handle all your emails in one place. So if you have multiple startup or multiple email and you want to create different username, but you don't want to pay per user, there are a really easy way for you to do that inside of ZooMail. And I'll make a video on my YouTube channel where I'll give you a complete breakdown on my strategy on how I'm able to save a lot of money by using ZooMail instead of using something like Gmail or Outlook or any of those other tools where I have to pay per user. If you need to do transactional email, my go-to tool is Resend. I know a lot of vibe coders also use that. It's such a clean looking framework that is really easy to use when you're dealing with transactional email. So transactional email is having, you have your SMTP server that automatically send emails to your customer. So when they sign up, when you have notification that you want to send to them, this is what you can use for it. And now Superbase actually has reduced their amount of email that is sent directly from their account. So I believe that now they only allow you to send emails to the owner of the account. So if you want to send email outside of that, you might use an SMTP server. And the SMTP server that you can use is Resend. And it's a really great tool. And I know that they're working on something new that is coming. And I'm wondering if this might be maybe a way to do operational email. So this way they'll have like transactional and operational email. So not only you can use that for transactional emails, but then use it for operational email. So this is something that I'm keeping an eye on. I don't know what this is going to be because they're always building different tools related to email. So I'm hoping it's going to be operational so that I don't have to jump between tools in order to handle both things, operational and transactional email. If you want to add payment, the go-to tool is usually Stripe, and specifically Stripe Payment Link, because Stripe Payment Link makes it so simple to add payment to your site. You literally log in, create a payment link, add a few details like when, if it's yearly or monthly, some detail about the product, and add the price, and voila, you're good and set up. And people can use that to pay for your service. I've made a video recently where I talked about how to take care of adding usage, limits, and access to your SaaS using payment links. I've built a framework for that. So if you're curious about how to do that, make sure to check my previous video where I covered that in detail. Now, if you don't want to use Stripe, you can use this other tool called Lemon Squeezy. Funny enough, it was actually acquired by Stripe, but this is another tool that a lot of Vibe coders are using when they're building their SaaS or they want to offer a subscription to user in the AI application. This is another really cool tool to use that is pretty great. And now let's talk about support, because support is such a big thing when you have an application. You want to make sure to communicate with customer. And a good tool to do that is called scripts.chat. This is the tool that I use. I know there are a lot of tools that you can use for doing AI driven, chat experience where the AI is responding to user. Some people like them, some people don't. I personally like to use scripts so that I can actually talk to customer directly. This way I can really understand how people are using my product and what kind of complaint they have or or problem that they're dealing with when they're using my product. So I like to be very close to the user. The tool that I recommend to use for support is Chris. It adds this little logo at the bottom of the page you can click on, and it will allow you to chat with your user when they have any question. And the cool thing about it, you can even see people that are currently visiting your website when you're using Chris. If you want to get ideas of what kind of feature people want to add to your application, you can use this tool called Canny. Canny make it super easy for you to have a product board, and a product boards make it super easy for you to show users what is on your roadmap, right? What kind of features you're currently dealing with and what kind of features you actually want to build next. And you allow people to also vote on feature. So if they like one of your feature or one of the feature that another user recommended, they can actually vote on it, and you can just drag it in plan and let people know that, okay, you know what, this feature that all of you guys have voted for is now planned and then now in progress. And then people can actually follow through the journey of how you're building and delivering feature for them. And I think this is a really great tool for building the right product for the right user. Now, when you have an app, one really big thing that a lot of people ignore is analytics. And some professional web coders know that when you're building an application, you want to make sure that you actually have a way to track people analytics so that you can understand how to improve the product. So you want to know what are people facing with, what they're dealing with. You want to track cohort to see the user journey, to understand how people are using your product in order to achieve product market fit. And a great tool to use for that is PostHog. PostHog also works really, really well with LLM. So it actually provide you LLM observability. So what is that? It's essentially allow you to find out, just the way you can track what's happening on your website, you can track what's happening on your LLM, right? How many tokens you're using, what are your current costs? Because if people are using your LLM all the time and you're not tracking costs, then it might be really bad for your business, because you want to actually know how much you're spending on each of those requests. And then when you're just looking at the dashboard on OpenAI or cloud, it could be really hard to associate those costs to the actual use on your website if you're not tracking that. So you want to use a tool like PostHog to track events on your website and see how these costs connect with those events to know exactly what is the cost of running your website. PostHog is open source and free. Even the paid plan is extremely cheap. So you can get started literally for free. It's one of my favorite tools to use by far. Actually, I barely use Google Analytics anymore because I was using PostHog. And I think PostHog has everything I want. It can track web analytics and it can track product analytics, which is user analytics, where I know exactly what my users are doing, but you still have to do the work. You still have to add those events in your app in order to see the result in PostHog. And if you want to know how to use it, then you can join the community that I built called AI Founders Club. In it, I'll explain how to use PostHog, and I make it super easy for you to get familiar with these kind of tools that help make your business more effective, analyzing your product, your user experience, and making things better along the way. Another big deal when you're building application, especially if you are the vibe coder generating APIs, is having a good way to document things. And a really cool site is Mintlify. Mintlify has a really pretty documentation. You've probably seen this documentation if you've used any API or any tool that have a documentation. They tend to go for Mintlify. This is something that you could probably generate with one of those generators, but I think that they spent a lot of time thinking about the different details of the documentation and how to make it super easy to use and navigate. So they put a lot of work thinking about that. And I've been looking for an open source version of that, but right now, until I find one, I think I'm just gonna be stuck with Mintlify because I really like what they're doing. Sometimes there is bug in your application and you want to track what's happening in your app before the user tells you that there's a bug in your app, right? You want to find out what bugs are happening before the user. So you want to use a tool like Rollbar to track bugs that are happening and tracking that in your dashboard. A lot of vibe coders that I've seen, I don't even know if they use that. This is something that most developers are aware of. And this is something that I want to make sure that you're aware that you can actually track the bugs that are happening in your app before the user tell you that they are happening. So you can use Rollbar in order to do that. Now, if you want a simple way to collect information from your user doing survey, then the tool that I recommend is Tally. This is a simple way to create a form, ask question. If you're creative, you can use it in so many different ways. You can use it for doing onboarding, or if you have, for example, a request access feature where you're going to launch your application later on, but you want to collect emails first. You can use it in so many different ways. You just have to be creative. And you can even add payment to those forms. So if you want to have people request access and pay to show that they committed to use your app, you can just use Tally to do that. You could build something from scratch, or you can use something that's already pre-built. So if you're building AI tools, oftentimes you want to have a chat experience. And there's a really cool tool called Assistant UI that has already taken care of creating the chat experience that you might use. So it has a way for you to submit a question. It has threads, and all of that is available for you open source. So you can just use these in order to get started really quickly. But alternatively, you can also use AI SDK. And AI SDK make it super simple for you to implement AI features into your application. I've made a video where I'm covering that, so make sure to check this out on my channel where I explain why I like this tool so much. It just makes it so easy for you to implement different providers and also implement different features for your application. It also has a UI chat. It has a way for you to compare different models, and it has a lot of cool, simple features that you can just plug into your code in order to make it easy. And all you have to do is tell the AI to use AI SDK in order to build whatever you're building, and it's going to make sure to use some of those pre-built components. So pretty cool SDK to use. Now, if you're building agents, the go-to tool is Mastra. So a lot of people before Mastra were using LangChain, but LangChain, not my favorite tool out there. Actually, I've been looking at it for a long time, and I was just hoping that there would be a much easier SDK to use in order to build agentic frameworks. And Mastra came around, and honestly, this is such a beautiful experience for building agents. So I think this is the easiest way for a vibe coder to build agentic framework. The other way that I think will be super easy for you to build agentic framework is by using Composio.dev. And Composio is used by big companies like 11x to build their agentic SDR agents and so on. So super, super cool tool to use if you want to, have an agent, give tools to your agent, and have it access different features, and also even giving it a knowledge base. Now, there's also what we call browser agents. So if you want to build an operator, what can you use, right? So you can use this site called Browser Use, which is also an open source project. So if you see ChatGPT operator, and you want to build something similar, you can use Browser Use to do that. You can also use Browser Base. So both tools make it super easy for you to build these kind of features. Now, if you want to build agents in the realm of voice and other stuff like that, you can use Vapi. Vapi is a voice AI agent for developers. Super easy to use, make it super easy for you to build a voice agent. I play around with it, and what I made was an agent that was actually handling some of the calls that I need to make when I need to change a plan or talk to my phone company or talk to different entity, and I have to do very boring tasks. So actually build those agents in this tool, and maybe I should make a video where I show you guys how I'm doing that. And I use those agents to take care of the most boring calls that I don't want to deal with. Now, another tool you can use is 11lab, which is a great tool if you're building audio or voice AI tools. So you can just use the API and add text to speech, speech to text, voice changer, dubbing, text to special effects, and voice cloning, and more. And if you're doing video, the go-to tool for me is Sieve Data. Sieve Data has everything you need to build video AI tools. So if you are a user of Oculus Clip, you can build an Oculus Clip clone. If you are a user of dubbing and you like dubbing stuff, you can build a dubbing feature. So it has a bunch of features that you can use specifically for video. So pretty cool tool to use. Now, there's a little bit more to that I want to show you here. So Photo AI, built by Levels, is actually using tools like Fall and Replicate to do what it's doing. So if you want to build one of those tools that allow to generate photos based on the photo that you upload, these are the kind of tools that you want to be using. And then a lot of vibe coders are using those tools to build the application, right? You're wondering, how are they competing with teams of 10 to 20 people? Well, they're using tools like Replicate and Fall to fine-tune models and build tools that make it super easy for them to have a really cool SaaS that do something great with value that people need. And if you want to fine-tune your model, you can use Kaggle. Kaggle is a database of data. So if you want to fine-tune for very specific need, this is where you want to go in order to find, very specific field where you can get the data to build a model that has this information. So in my community, AI Founders Club, there is over 125 tools that you can use in order to build AI application. And all of those tools are available for you as soon as you join the community. So if you're curious about it, I highly recommend you guys to check out AI Founders Club on School. And you're going to be along founders just like you that are building with AI. Now, sometimes you are using tools and they're expensive and you want a cheaper alternative. So what you can do is head over to openalternative.co and search the tool that you are currently using, and then you'll be able to find an alternative for that. So if you're using, for example, Google Analytics and you're curious to see if there are alternatives for that, you can just click on tools and see all the different alternatives. For example, Unami or PostHog and so on and so on. So this is a great tool to use if you want to find alternatives to your favorite tool. All right, so yeah, so I think this pretty much covered it all. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to hit a big like and subscribe and check one of those videos right here, all right? And I hope you guys are gonna be able to build a really cool application with all of these resources. And when you do, make sure to let me know. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.